What's up, story lovers? Welcome to Harry FLAX. In today's video, we have a fantastic tale for you. What if Ancient One trained Harry at age 6 and Time Stone revealed Dumbledore's 41 timeline manipulations? If this is your first time here, consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you never miss a story. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for your continued support. Alright, let's jump right into it. Chapter 1. The boy who vanished. The cupboard under the stairs was dark as usual, but 6-year-old Harry Potter wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. You get used to things when they're all you know. What he couldn't get used to was Uncle Vernon's shouting, which rattled through the thin door. "Boy! Did you finish the garden yet?" Harry winced. He'd been working since sunrise, pulling weeds until his small hands blistered, but Dudley had stomped through the flower beds when no one was looking. "I'm not done yet, Uncle Vernon," Harry called back, his voice small. The door yanked open. Vernon's purple face filled the space. "Useless, just like your parents. Get out there and fix it before Petunia sees." Harry scrambled past his uncle, ducking the swipe aimed at his head. Outside, the summer heat pressed down as he surveyed the trampled flowers. Aunt Petunia would blame him no matter what. Tears pricked his eyes. "I just wish I could fix it," he whispered, pressing his palm against a crushed lily. The flower quivered. Then, impossibly, it straightened. The broken stem knitted together, petals unfurled, and vibrant color returned. Harry gasped, jerking his hand back. "Did I?" He reached for another broken flower. The same thing happened. Excitement bubbled up inside him. He moved faster, touching plant after plant. The entire garden began restoring itself beneath his fingertips. Too late, he heard Petunia's shriek behind him. "Vernon! He's doing it again. The freakish thing." Harry spun around just as Vernon charged through the back door. "I warned you, boy." Fear exploded inside Harry, raw, primal fear mixed with something else, something powerful. The air around him crackled. Vernon stopped short, eyes widening. What the devil? The space between them tore open. It wasn't like ripping fabric, it was like reality itself split apart, revealing swirling golden light. Harry felt himself being pulled toward it. "Help!" he cried, but the Dursleys backed away. The golden tear expanded. Harry lost his footing and tumbled through. He fell through impossible space, gold and blue energy streaking past him. Just when terror threatened to overwhelm him, he landed on a polished wooden floor. "Well," said a calm voice above him. "This is unexpected." Harry looked up into the face of a bald woman in flowing yellow robes. Her eyes were ancient and kind. "I'm sorry," Harry said automatically. "I didn't mean to create an interdimensional rift without training." "I should think not." She offered her hand. "I am the Ancient One. And you, child, have managed something most sorcerers spend decades learning." Harry hesitantly took her hand. "I'm Harry. Harry Potter." "I know." She helped him up, studying him with curious eyes. "You're quite far from home, Harry Potter. And surrounded by temporal anomalies I haven't seen in centuries." Harry didn't understand the words, but her gentle tone made him relax slightly. "Where am I?" "Camartage. Nepal." "Nepal? But I was just in Surrey." "Indeed. And that's what makes your accidental journey so remarkable." She circled him slowly. "Tell me, Harry, do strange things often happen around you?" Harry hesitated, years of Dursley conditioning making him cautious. "I'm not supposed to talk about that." "Ah. Those who fear what they don't understand often forbid speaking of it." She knelt to his level. "Here, we study such things. We call it the mystic arts." "Like, magic?" Harry whispered the forbidden word. She smiled. "Precisely like magic." A stern-faced Asian man appeared in the doorway. "Ancient One, the relic detector was," He stopped, eyeing Harry. I see you found the source. Wong, meet Harry Potter. He's opened a dimensional gateway with no training. Wong's eyebrows rose. Impossible. And yet. The Ancient One gestured to Harry. More interesting are the time disturbances surrounding him. They're not of his making. Wong approached, his expression softening slightly. A child shouldn't have this many temporal distortions attached to him. Harry clutched his oversized shirt. Am I in trouble? No, the Ancient One said firmly. But someone has been interfering with your timeline. Repeatedly. Wong held out his hand, drawing golden symbols in the air. They swirled around Harry, forming complex patterns before dispersing. 41 distinct manipulations. All centered on him. 41. The Ancient One's serene expression faltered. That goes beyond irresponsible. Harry's stomach growled loudly, interrupting the strange conversation. When did you last eat, child? Wong asked. Harry shrugged. Yesterday morning, I think. The adults exchanged looks. Wong, please show our young guest to the dining hall. The Ancient One's voice was light, but her eyes had hardened. I need to consult the eye. Harry had never eaten so much in his life. The simple vegetable stew and bread tasted better than anything Aunt Petunia had ever made. People in strange clothes passed through, giving him curious looks but smiling when Wong introduced him. Is this a school? Harry asked, watching students practicing strange movements in the courtyard. Of sorts, Wong replied. We study the mystic arts and protect the world from mystical threats. Like superheroes? Wong almost smiled. Less colorful costumes, more dimensional responsibility. A young woman demonstrated a movement that created golden shields from thin air. Harry watched, entranced. Could I learn that? Perhaps. You've shown unusual aptitude already. But I need to go home soon, Harry said without enthusiasm. Uncle Vernon will be really angry. Wong studied him carefully. Those clothes you're wearing, they don't fit you. Harry tugged at Dudley's hand-me-downs. These are my cousin's. He's bigger than me. And those marks on your arm? Harry instinctively covered the fingerprint bruises Vernon had left. I'm clumsy. Before Wong could respond, the Ancient One appeared. Harry, I'd like to show you something. She led him to a quiet room with a strange window that seemed to look out on New York City. Do you know what this is? Harry shook his head. A portal. Distance means little to those who understand the dimensions. She gestured, and the view changed to Privet Drive. The Dursleys were talking to police officers at their door. They're looking for you, though not with the concern one might expect for a missing child. Harry watched Vernon's performance, the fake worry, the hands clutching Petunia's shoulders in support. He'd seen it before when teachers asked questions. I have to go back, don't I? The Ancient One was quiet for a moment. I've consulted the Time Stone, one of our most powerful relics. The temporal disturbances around you are deliberate, Harry. Someone has been manipulating events in your life since you were born. Why? That remains unclear. But returning you to that house would perpetuate whatever design they have for you. She knelt beside him. I'm offering you a choice, Harry Potter. You can return to Surrey, or you can stay here, learn our ways, and perhaps discover why someone has interfered with your timeline so extensively. Harry looked back at the portal. Dudley was eating ice cream while the police searched. No one seemed particularly distressed. Would I learn to make shields like that girl outside? And much more. Could I still go to regular school? We would ensure your education continues in all necessary subjects. Harry took a deep breath. I want to stay. The Ancient One nodded. A wise choice. But know this, whoever has been manipulating your timeline will notice your absence. They may come looking. Good, Harry said with unexpected firmness. Then I can ask them why. Harry's new room wasn't much bigger than his cupboard, but it was his. A real bed, a window overlooking snow-capped mountains, and a small desk with actual books he was encouraged to read. His first weeks at Camartage passed in a blur. He learned meditation from Master Hammer, basic forms from Wong, and history from the Ancient One herself. They treated his questions with respect instead of irritation, explained when he didn't understand, and never once locked him away for accidental magic. One morning, struggling with a simple levitation exercise, Harry felt frustration building. "I can't do it," he muttered, glaring at the feather that refused to rise. "You're approaching it incorrectly," the Ancient One said, appearing beside him. "You're trying to force your will upon the object. The mystic arts require understanding, not domination. I made flowers grow back home. I didn't understand anything then." "Ah, but that was different magic entirely." She sat cross-legged beside him. "You have two distinct energies within you, Harry. The one you were born with, wizarding magic, and the universal energies all sorcerers learn to harness." Harry frowned. "Wizarding magic? Like, actual wizards?" "Indeed. Your parents were a wizard and witch. There's an entire magical society hidden from non-magical people. Your accidental magic with the flowers came from that inheritance." Harry's mouth fell open. "My parents weren't drunks who died in a car crash." The Ancient One's expression darkened. "Is that what you were told?" Harry nodded, and she sighed. "Another manipulation. Your parents, Lily and James Potter, were murdered by a dark wizard when you were just a baby. You survived a killing curse that should have been impossible to survive, earning you the title, the boy who lived among wizards. I'm famous. In their world, yes. Which is why these temporal manipulations concern me. Someone has been carefully arranging your life's path." She drew golden energy between her palms. "Try something for me. Don't focus on moving the feather. Instead, feel the energy around you and gently suggest a new path for it." Harry closed his eyes, sensing the strange tingling he'd started noticing during meditation. Instead of pushing it at the feather, he imagined it flowing like water around and under the object. "Good," the Ancient One's voice came softly. "Now open your eyes." The feather hovered 6 inches above the floor, surrounded by a faint golden glow. "I did it." "You did. And now, watch." She made a subtle gesture, and the feather turned blue-white instead of gold. "That's your wizarding magic. You can access both, Harry. Few can claim such versatility." Harry let the feather drift down. "Will I go to wizard school someday? When you turn 11, you'll receive an invitation to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. But by then, you'll have years of mystical training to complement your wizarding education." She smiled. "And perhaps we'll have answers about those timeline manipulations." "Focus, Harry." Wong barked as Harry narrowly dodged an energy whip. At 9 years old, Harry moved with growing confidence through the training grounds. 3 years of daily practice had transformed the skinny, hesitant boy into a quick-thinking young apprentice. His glasses, now properly fitted, flashed as he spun away from Wong's attack. "You're telegraphing your moves," Harry called back, forming a small shield to deflect the next strike. Wong almost smiled. "Am I?" Suddenly, Wong vanished. Harry sensed movement behind him and dropped flat as energy crackled overhead. He rolled, drawing a circular pattern that created a portal beneath Wong. The master dropped 6 feet before catching himself with a hastily formed platform. "Better," Wong admitted, climbing back up. "But don't get cocky." Harry grinned, adjusting his training robes. "That's 3 times I've surprised you this week. And 57 times I've bested you. Hardly a record to boast about." Other students watched from the sidelines, some impressed, others clearly jealous of the young apprentice's progress. Harry had learned to ignore both reactions. Later, practicing alone in the library, Harry attempted a particularly complex shielding pattern. The golden energy sputtered and died halfway through. "Damn it," he muttered. "Language, young Potter," came Master Hammer's voice. The one-handed sorcerer approached with a stack of books. Frustration clouds the mind. "Sorry, Master Hammer. I almost had it yesterday." Almost means little in the face of a mystical threat. Hammer set down the books and demonstrated the pattern slowly. "Your right hand wavers here, breaking the flow." Harry tried again, correcting the movement. The shield formed perfectly, shimmering with intricate patterns. "Thanks." Harry held it for 10 seconds before releasing it. "Master Hammer, can I ask you something?" "You just did, but you may ask another question." Harry smiled at the familiar joke. "The Ancient One has been teaching me about magical theory, but she won't let me near the time stone anymore. Not since I saw." He stopped, unsure how much to reveal. Hammer's expression grew serious. "The Ancient One guards the Eye of Agamotto carefully. If she's restricted your access, she has reason. But it showed me something important about the wizard who's been manipulating my timeline. A man with a long white beard and half-moon glasses." "Albus Dumbledore," Hammer said, surprising Harry. "You know him?" "The Ancient One knows of all major practitioners of magic, regardless of their tradition. Dumbledore is considered the greatest wizard of the modern age. He's the one who left me with the Dursleys. The time stone showed me that much before the Ancient One stopped the vision." Harry's voice hardened. "Why would someone famous and powerful dump me with people who hated magic?" Hammer considered his answer carefully. "Great power often leads people to believe they alone know what's best. The Ancient One herself is not immune to this failing. Is that why she doesn't want me looking at those timeline manipulations anymore? Perhaps she fears what you might do with such knowledge." Harry straightened his back. "I just want the truth. Truth, like time, can be dangerous when confronted directly." Hammer placed his hand on Harry's shoulder. "But I suspect you'll find your answers soon enough." On his 10th birthday, Harry woke to find a small package beside his bed. Inside was a strange pendant, a silver eye hanging from a leather cord. The note read simply, "For clarity when the time comes. Use it wisely." Harry recognized it immediately, a miniature version of the containment vessel for the time stone, though without the actual relic inside. He slipped it over his head, feeling a subtle magical resonance. At breakfast, the Ancient One acted as though she hadn't given him anything, instead presenting him with a proper birthday cake, his 4th ever, all from Camartage. The other students sang. Wong looked slightly less stern than usual, and for a moment, Harry felt completely at home. That night, alone in his room, he held the pendant and whispered, "Show me." The pendant glowed green, impossibly, since it didn't contain the actual time stone. A vision formed before him, an old man with twinkling blue eyes and a long white beard standing over a baby's crib. "The greater good requires sacrifice," Harry Potter, the man, Dumbledore, murmured. "Forgive an old man his manipulations." He waved a wand, and time itself seemed to shift. Harry watched as reality rewrote itself subtly. The vision shifted to another scene, Dumbledore altering something else, then another change, and another. 41 distinct manipulations unfolded before Harry's eyes, some small, ensuring Vernon Dursley got a promotion that kept the family in Privet Drive, others massive, redirecting a prophecy that originally named a different child. The final vision showed Dumbledore looking troubled. "The monitoring charms have failed. Harry Potter has vanished completely." He paced his office. "For years of searching, and nothing. The prophecy cannot be fulfilled if the boy isn't properly prepared." The pendant cooled, the vision fading. Harry sat in the darkness, processing what he'd seen. "He's been playing chess with my life," he whispered. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. The Ancient One entered without waiting for response. "I see you've used my gift." Harry nodded. Why show me this now? Because next year, you'll receive your Hogwarts letter. Dumbledore will discover you're alive, and you'll face a choice: ignore the wizarding world entirely, or enter it on your own terms. She sat beside him. Knowledge is your protection, Harry. He manipulated a prophecy about me and Voldemort. Yes. Originally, it could have referenced another child. Neville Longbottom, Harry said, remembering the vision. Albus Dumbledore altered subtle magical flows to ensure the prophecy centered on you instead. He believed you would be the better weapon against the Dark Wizard. Harry's hands tightened into fists. I was a baby. Which makes his actions all the more questionable. The Ancient One's voice remained calm, but her eyes flashed with rare anger. Even I, with the Time Stone's power, would never manipulate a child's destiny so thoroughly. What should I do? That, Harry Potter, is entirely your choice. For 4 years, you've trained in our ways while maintaining your wizarding abilities through specialized exercises. You could continue here, avoiding Dumbledore's grand design entirely. Harry thought about it, then shook his head. No. I need to know why. And I need to learn wizarding magic properly. Then when your letter comes, you shall go. She smiled slightly. Though perhaps not as the Harry Potter Dumbledore expects. The letter arrived by owl exactly 1 year later, addressed with impossible specificity. Mr. H. Potter, the Eastern Meditation Chamber, Camartage, Nepal. Harry read through the acceptance letter to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry with mixed emotions. Excitement, apprehension, and a touch of anger at seeing Albus Dumbledore's name signed at the bottom. The Ancient One watched him from across the room. Will you accept? Yes, Harry said without hesitation. But I'm not walking in blind. Indeed not. She approached, holding a familiar green stone in an amulet. Before you reply, there's one final timeline manipulation you should witness. She opened the eye of Agamotto, and the time stone cast its verdant light over them both. Time unwound before them, showing Dumbledore in a darkened office. The blood wards have fallen, the old wizard murmured to a stern-looking woman. After 5 years of searching, we must accept that Harry Potter is either hidden by magic beyond my detection, or he is dead, Minerva. The boy cannot be dead, Albus. The prophecy may have been misinterpreted. Perhaps Voldemort's defeat that night was the fulfillment, not the beginning. Dumbledore looked suddenly old. I've failed the boy, and possibly the wizarding world. The vision shifted forward. Dumbledore stood before a mirror, waving his wand in complex patterns. A final attempt, he muttered. If the boy lives, let this find him. Golden light exploded outward, rippling through reality itself. Back in Camartage, the Ancient One closed the eye. That was 3 days ago. His spell finally penetrated the mystical barriers around Camartage, allowing their letter owl to find you. Harry considered this. He doesn't know I'm alive for certain, just that the letter could be delivered. Correct. Which gives you an advantage. The Ancient One handed him parchment and a quill. How will you respond? Harry dipped the quill and began to write, Dear Deputy Headmistress McGonagall, I accept my place at Hogwarts. However, having lived outside Britain for 5 years, I'll need information about purchasing school supplies. Respectfully, Harry Potter Short, revealing nothing about where or with whom he'd been living. Wong will accompany you to London next week, the Ancient One said. The wizards will undoubtedly attempt to take control of your arrangements once they confirm you're alive. They'll try, Harry agreed, a determined glint in his eye. But I'm not the same boy Dumbledore left on a doorstep. No, the Ancient One said softly. You are something else entirely. Diagon Alley bustled with preterm shopping activity. Harry, dressed in simple Muggle clothes with his pendant hidden beneath his shirt, blended in perfectly beside Wong, who had reluctantly exchanged his traditional garb for a crisp suit. Remember, Wong muttered as they approached Gringotts Bank, reveal nothing about Camartage or your mystical training. I know, Harry said. I'm just an ordinary kid excited about magic school. The goblin tellers eyed them suspiciously until Harry presented his key, recovered from a vault in Camartage where the Ancient One had stored items connected to Harry's parents. "Mr. Potter," the goblin said, eyes widening slightly. "We had believed you lost." "Not lost," Harry replied with a smile. "Just elsewhere." His trust vault contained more gold than Harry had imagined. Wong observed with his usual stoicism as Harry filled a pouch. "Your parents provided for you well," Wong noted as they left. "Another thing Dumbledore kept from me," Harry said quietly. As they shopped for supplies, Harry felt eyes following him. His scar, faded but still visible, occasionally drew second glances. Outside the bookstore, a tall red-headed boy about his age stared openly. "Blimey," the boy whispered to his mother. "That's Harry Potter." Harry nodded politely and slipped inside before the woman could approach. Wong followed, placing himself strategically between Harry and the entrance. "Your fame precedes you," Wong observed drily. "Let's hurry," Harry said. "We still need my wand." Ollivander's shop was dark and dusty. The wand maker himself appeared suddenly, making Harry instinctively drop into a defensive stance before catching himself. "Harry Potter," Ollivander whispered. "I wondered if I would ever see you." The wand maker's eyes flickered to Wong, then back to Harry. "Curious companions you keep, Mr. Potter. Not of the wizarding world, yet not entirely without magic." Wong remained impassive. "The boy needs his wand." Of course, of course." Ollivander began presenting wands for Harry to try. Wand after wand rejected him until Ollivander brought out one of holly and phoenix feather. The moment Harry touched it, he felt a connection, different from his mystical energies, but familiar like an old friend. "Curious," Ollivander murmured. "The phoenix who gave that feather gave one other." "Just one." "That feather resides in the wand that gave you that scar." Harry's hand tightened around the wand. "Voldemort's wand." Ollivander flinched at the name. "The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. You are destined for great things, as was he who must not be named." As they left the shop, an enormous bearded man came barreling down the alley. "Harry," he boomed. "Yeri alive. Professor Dumbledore sent me to find ya when he heard ye been spotted." Harry tensed, but kept his expression neutral. "Hello. You have me at a disadvantage. Rubius Hagrid, keeper of keys at Hogwarts. Blimey, we've been searching for ye for years." "Where've ye been, Harry?" "Safe," Harry said simply. "And well cared for." Hagrid's eyes darted to Wong. "And who might this be?" Wong extended his hand. "Mr. Wong. Harry's guardian." "Guardian? But Dumbledore placed ye with your aunt and uncle." "Who were unsuitable," Wong said flatly. "Harry has been under proper care since age 6. Hagrid looked conflicted. "Professor Dumbledore will want to speak with ye both." "That can wait until term begins," Harry interrupted politely. "We've finished our shopping and have other appointments today." "But, it was nice meeting you, Mr. Hagrid," Harry said with a finality beyond his years. "I look forward to seeing Hogwarts." As they walked away, Hagrid staring after them, Wong gave Harry a rare nod of approval. "You handled that well." Harry shrugged. "That was just the opening move. The real game starts at Hogwarts." "Indeed." Wong led him toward the leaky cauldron's exit. "And Dumbledore will soon discover that while he's been manipulating timelines, you've been learning to master them." Harry touched the pendant beneath his shirt, thinking of the 41 manipulations he'd witnessed. "I'm ready." Chapter 2, Between Two Worlds. The Scarlet Hogwarts Express gleamed in the September sunlight, billowing steam across platform 9 3/4. Harry stood alone, taking it all in. Wong had accompanied him to King's Cross but stopped at the magical barrier, a final test of Harry's independence. "Remember your training," Wong had said. "And remember why you're there." Harry adjusted his plain black robes, nothing like the mystic garb of Camartage, but comfortable enough. His wand was holstered in a custom sleeve Wong had designed, allowing quick access while keeping his hands free for mystical gestures if needed. The pendant from the Ancient One hung beneath his shirt, cool against his skin. A family of redheads hustled past, the mother herding 4 boys and a young girl while shouting instructions. Harry recognized the youngest boy from Diagon Alley, the one who'd stared at him. "Fred, George, behave yourselves this year or so help me, relax, Mum," one of the twins said with a grin. "We're practically prefect material now." Harry smiled and slipped onto the train, finding an empty compartment near the back. He settled in, placing the small meditation stone the Ancient One had given him on his palm. Closing his eyes, he centered himself, extending his senses outward as he'd been taught. The compartment door slid open. Harry didn't open his eyes. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" A girl's voice, precise and a bit nervous. "Help yourself," Harry said, opening his eyes and pocketing the stone. The girl had bushy brown hair and large front teeth. She dragged an enormous trunk behind her. "I'm Hermione Granger," she announced, extending her hand formally. "First year." "Harry Potter." "Also first year." Hermione's eyes widened. "Harry Potter? I've read all about you. You're in modern magical history, the rise and fall of the dark arts, and great wizarding events of the 20th century." "Am I?" Harry raised an eyebrow. "Interesting, since no one's interviewed me." "But," Hermione looked confused. "The books say you vanished 5 years ago from your Muggle relative's home." "That part's true, at least." Harry helped her stow her trunk. "The rest is probably guesswork." The compartment door opened again. The red-headed boy stood there awkwardly. Everywhere else is full. Mind if I sit here?" Harry gestured to the empty seat. "Go ahead." "I'm Ron Weasley," he said, then blurted out, "Are you really Harry Potter?" "Last time I checked." Harry was getting tired of the question. "Do you have the, you know?" Ron pointed at his own forehead. Harry sighed and lifted his fringe, revealing the lightning scar. "Wicked," Ron breathed. "And is it true? You've been missing for years. Mum says Professor Dumbledore had everyone looking for you." "I wasn't missing. I knew exactly where I was." Ron looked puzzled by this answer, but Hermione leaned forward eagerly. "Where were you? Was it some secret training facility? Did Dumbledore hide you to protect you from remaining Death Eaters?" Harry almost laughed at how close yet far off she was. "I was somewhere safe, learning things. That's all I can say." The train lurched forward. As the platform disappeared behind them, Harry felt a momentary pang, not homesickness for Privet Drive, but for the peaceful mountains surrounding Camartage. The Great Hall of Hogwarts buzzed with excitement as the first years filed in behind Professor McGonagall. Harry kept his face neutral, but his eyes darted everywhere, taking in details. The enchanted ceiling, the floating candles, the 4 long house tables, all impressive wizarding magic, though different from the elegant precision of mystic arts. At the staff table, Harry immediately spotted Dumbledore. The Ancient One's visions had prepared him, but seeing the wizard in person still sent a chill down his spine. 41 timeline manipulations, all centered around Harry. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled behind half-moon spectacles as he scanned the new students, but when they landed on Harry, the twinkle faltered. "He didn't expect me to actually show up," Harry realized. "He thought I was dead." McGonagall placed a battered hat on a stool, and Harry watched with interest as it burst into song. Mystical objects at Camartage rarely did musical numbers. The sorting began. Hermione became a Gryffindor after nearly a minute under the hat. A blonde boy named Malfoy was instantly sorted into Slytherin. Then, Potter, Harry. The hall went dead silent, then erupted in whispers. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" Harry walked calmly to the stool, keeping his eyes fixed on Dumbledore, whose expression had shifted to intense curiosity. McGonagall placed the hat on his head. "Well, well," said a small voice in his ear. "What have we here?" "Oh my, difficult, very difficult. Not just a wizard, are you? The mystic arts flow through you alongside wizarding magic. How fascinating. You can see that?" Harry thought. "I see everything in your head, Mr. Potter. Including your knowledge of certain temporal adjustments. How extraordinary. Dumbledore would be most interested. Don't tell him," Harry thought fiercely. "Your secrets are safe with me. Now, where to put you? You've got courage, certainly. A sharp mind too. Loyalty to those who've earned it. An ambition, oh yes, a desire to forge your own destiny. So where?" Harry gripped the edge of the stool. "Somewhere I can learn what I need to know. In that case, Gryffindor." The Gryffindor table exploded with cheers. The Weasley twins started a chant, "We got Potter. We got Potter." As Harry removed the hat, he caught Dumbledore's eye again. The old wizard was now smiling, but his eyes held calculation. Harry nodded politely and went to join his new house. Later, as they ate, Harry listened more than he spoke. The Weasley twins, Fred and George, were entertaining everyone with jokes. Ron packed away food like he was starving. Hermione rattled off facts about the enchanted ceiling to anyone who would listen. "So where've you been all these years, Potter?" asked an older boy named Percy, Ron's brother. There were all sorts of rumors. "I've been studying," Harry said simply. "Studying what?" Hermione asked eagerly. "Advanced magic. Defense against the dark arts." Harry smiled. "A bit of everything." Dumbledore rose for announcements, warning students about forbidden areas and banned items. When he finished, he looked directly at Harry. "And may I say, it is particularly heartening to see some faces we had feared lost to us forever. Welcome home." The students applauded, many glancing at Harry. He kept his expression pleasant but reserved. "This isn't home," he thought. "And you're not my guardian." The first week of classes was an adjustment. Harry found himself comparing everything to his training at Camartage. Transfiguration with McGonagall was precise and disciplined, reminiscent of Wong's teaching style. Charms with Flitwick had the creative flow of the Ancient One's lessons. Potions with Snape, though, that was something else entirely. "Ah, yes," Snape said during roll call, pausing at Harry's name. "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." The Slytherins sniggered. Harry said nothing, meeting Snape's gaze calmly. "Tell me, Potter, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Hermione's hand shot up. Harry considered the question. During his Camartage education, he'd studied some magical herbology as it related to mystical properties. "A sleeping potion called the Draught of Living Death, sir," he answered evenly. Snape's eyes narrowed slightly. "Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" "The stomach of a goat. It's an antidote to most poisons." "What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane?" "They're the same plant, also called aconite." A flicker of surprise crossed Snape's face before his scowl deepened. "It seems fame isn't everything, is it, Mr. Potter?" "No, sir," Harry agreed. "Study and application are far more valuable." Several students looked shocked at his calm response. Snape glared for a moment, then turned away. "Well? Why aren't you all copying that down?" After class, Ron stared at Harry in amazement. "How did you know all that? And how did you not lose your temper? Snape's a complete git." "I've had stricter teachers," Harry said, thinking of Wong's unforgiving training sessions. "And I've read ahead." Hermione hurried to catch up with them. "That was impressive, Harry. I read all the course books too, but I didn't expect anyone else to bother. Where I studied before, being unprepared wasn't an option. Where exactly was that? Hermione asked, not for the first time. Harry smiled. A place where questions are encouraged but patience is taught first. 3 weeks into term, Harry finally received the summons he'd been expecting. Professor McGonagall approached him at breakfast. "Mr. Potter, the headmaster would like to see you in his office after your morning classes." Harry nodded. "Thank you, Professor." "The password is the chocolate frog," she added, then hesitated. "Potter, the headmaster has been quite concerned about your whereabouts these past years." "Has he?" Harry kept his tone neutral. "That's interesting, considering he's the one who left me with people who locked me in a cupboard for 5 years. McGonagall's face paled. What? A cupboard? My bedroom at the Dursleys. Didn't Professor Dumbledore mention that when he was so concerned about me?" Harry gathered his books. "I should get to Charms, Professor. Wouldn't want to be late." He left her standing there, speechless. A small victory, but satisfying nonetheless. That afternoon, Harry stood before the gargoyle guarding Dumbledore's office. "Chocolate frog," he said, and the gargoyle leapt aside. The spiral staircase carried him upward. Harry took the moment to center himself, touching the pendant beneath his robes. He'd expected this confrontation, prepared for it extensively with the Ancient One. Knowledge was power, she had reminded him, especially when others didn't know what you knew. Harry knocked on the ornate door. "Enter," called Dumbledore's voice. The headmaster's office was a marvel of magical curiosities. Silver instruments whirred and puffed on spindle-legged tables. Portraits of former headmasters pretended to sleep in their frames. A magnificent red and gold bird perched beside the desk, a phoenix, Harry recognized from his studies. "Ah, Harry," Dumbledore said warmly, rising from behind his desk. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit down." Harry took the offered chair, posture perfect as Wong had drilled into him. "Thank you for inviting me, Headmaster." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled as he studied Harry over his half-moon spectacles. "I must say, my boy, you've caused quite a stir these past years. We feared the worst when you disappeared from your aunt and uncle's home." Harry met his gaze steadily. "Did they report me missing right away?" A flicker of something, discomfort, crossed Dumbledore's face. "I believe there was some initial confusion. They thought perhaps you had run away and would return." "Interesting. I would have thought the monitoring charms you placed on the house would have alerted you immediately." Dumbledore went very still. "Monitoring charms?" "The ones tied to the blood wards," Harry said calmly. "The ones that failed when I left Britain." The twinkle vanished from Dumbledore's eyes. "You seem remarkably well informed for someone who's been missing from the wizarding world, Harry." "Not missing, Headmaster. Just not where you left me." "And where, may I ask, have you been?" "We searched extensively." Harry considered his answer carefully. "With people who respected my safety and education enough to teach me, not lock me away." "The protection at your aunt's home was essential, Harry." "Blood magic was failing because there was no love there," Harry interrupted. "Isn't that right, Professor? Blood wards require familial affection to maintain their strength. The Dursleys provided none." Dumbledore leaned back, reassessing the boy before him. "You've learned a great deal." "I've had good teachers." "Might I know who these teachers are?" "You might ask, but I'm not obliged to answer." A tense silence fell. The phoenix trilled softly. "That's Fawkes," Dumbledore said, clearly trying to steer the conversation to safer ground. "A phoenix?" Harry nodded. "He's beautiful." "The feather in my wand came from him," Mr. Ollivander said. "Indeed it did." Dumbledore stroked his beard. "Harry, I understand you may harbor some resentment about your placement with the Dursleys. I assure you, it was done with your best interests at heart." "Was it?" Harry asked quietly. Or was it done to ensure I would be properly moldable when I eventually came to Hogwarts? Grateful for any kindness after years of neglect. Dumbledore's expression hardened slightly. You are speaking of matters beyond your understanding. Am I? Harry reached into his robes and pulled out the pendant the Ancient One had given him. I understand quite a bit about manipulation, Headmaster. Including the manipulation of time. The color drained from Dumbledore's face as he stared at the pendant. It wasn't the actual Eye of Agamotto, but it bore enough resemblance to clearly disturb him. Where did you get that? From someone who understands that tampering with timelines has consequences. Harry stood up. 41 consequences, in my case. Dumbledore rose as well, suddenly looking every bit his considerable age. Harry, you cannot possibly understand, I understand enough. Harry moved toward the door. I'm here to learn wizarding magic, Professor Dumbledore. That's all. My life outside these walls remains my own. Harry, please, there are forces at work, prophecies, that you helped shape. Harry paused at the door. I know about the prophecy, sir. The real one, before you nudged it toward me instead of Neville Longbottom. Dumbledore actually took a step back. How could you possibly? Good afternoon, Headmaster, Harry said politely. Thank you for your concern, but I can assure you I'm quite well protected. He closed the door quietly behind him, heart pounding but face composed. He'd revealed just enough to unsettle Dumbledore without showing his full hand. Back in the Gryffindor common room, Ron waved him over to a wizard chess game. How'd it go with Dumbledore? Interestingly, Harry said, sitting down. He wanted to know where I've been. Did you tell him? Hermione asked, looking up from her Transfiguration essay. No. Harry watched Ron's knight smash a pawn. Some things are better kept private. Halloween arrived with the smell of baking pumpkin wafting through the corridors. Harry had been excelling in classes, though he was careful not to show off. The mystic arts gave him an advantage in understanding magical theory, but the actual spellcasting was different enough that he still had to work at it. During Charms class, they practiced the levitation charm. Harry partnered with Neville Longbottom, who was struggling badly. I'm rubbish at this, Neville sighed after his 5th failed attempt. You're overthinking it, Harry said gently. Magic responds to intent more than perfect technique. Easy for you to say, Neville muttered. Everything comes naturally to you. Harry thought of his early days at Camartage, bruised and frustrated as Wong corrected his form for the 100th time. Nothing worth learning comes naturally, Neville. Try again, but this time, believe the feather wants to rise. Neville gave him a skeptical look but tried again. Wingardium Leviosa. The feather twitched, then rose shakily a few inches. I did it. Neville gasped. Well done, Mr. Longbottom. Professor Flitwick squeaked. 5 points to Gryffindor. Across the room, Hermione was trying to help Ron, who seemed more annoyed than grateful. His frustrated, you do it then, if you're so clever, carried across the classroom. Hermione performed the charm flawlessly, earning Ron's scowl and Flitwick's praise. After class, Harry overheard Ron complaining. It's no wonder no one can stand her. She's a nightmare, honestly. A figure bumped past them, Hermione, tears in her eyes. I think she heard you, Harry said. Ron looked uncomfortable. So? She must have noticed she's got no friends. That doesn't make it okay to be cruel, Harry replied. The Ancient One had taught him that unnecessary cruelty was a sign of weakness, not strength. When Hermione didn't appear for the next class, or any classes afterward, Harry grew concerned. During the Halloween feast, he was just about to suggest they look for her when Professor Quirrell burst into the hall. Troll! In the dungeons. He swayed on his feet. Thought you ought to know. Then he collapsed. Chaos erupted until Dumbledore called for order, sending students to their dormitories. As they filed out, Harry grabbed Ron's arm. Hermione doesn't know about the troll. Ron looked conflicted. Fine. But Percy better not see us. They slipped away from the Gryffindor line, hurrying toward the girls' bathrooms where someone said Hermione had been crying all afternoon. Rounding a corner, they froze. The troll was lumbering down the corridor ahead of them. It's going into that room. Ron whispered. Harry felt his stomach drop. That's the girls' bathroom. A scream confirmed his fear. Without hesitation, Harry sprinted forward, Ron at his heels. The scene inside was terrifying. Hermione was shrinking against the wall as the 12-foot troll advanced on her, smashing sinks with its massive club. Distract it. Harry yelled to Ron, who began throwing debris at the creature. The troll turned, confused by the new targets. Harry took the moment to dash around it, reaching Hermione. Come on, run, he urged, but she was frozen in terror. The troll roared, swinging its club toward them. Harry reacted instinctively, not with his wand, but with a mystic art's defensive gesture. Golden energy flickered briefly between his fingertips, invisible to anyone not looking directly at his hands, deflecting the club just enough to miss them. Wingardium Leviosa. Ron shouted, using the very charm he'd struggled with earlier. The troll's club floated out of its hand, hovered for a moment, then dropped heavily onto its owner's head. The troll swayed and crashed to the floor with a boom that shook the whole room. Hermione was the first to speak. Is it dead? Just knocked out, I think, Harry said, checking his hands surreptitiously. That had been close, he'd almost revealed his mystic abilities. What did you do? She asked, staring at him strangely. When it swung at us, you moved your hands and the club changed direction. Before Harry could answer, Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell burst into the bathroom. McGonagall looked furious as she demanded an explanation. To Harry's surprise, Hermione lied to protect them. It was my fault, Professor. I went looking for the troll. I've read about them and thought I could handle it. If Harry and Ron hadn't found me, I'd probably be dead. McGonagall's lecture was severe, but she awarded Ron and Harry 5 points each for sheer dumb luck. As they headed back to Gryffindor Tower, Hermione fell into step beside Harry. I saw what you did, she whispered. That wasn't a wizard spell. Harry met her eyes. We all have our secrets, Hermione. She nodded slowly. Thank you for coming to find me. From that moment, Hermione Granger became their friend, and some secrets, though not all, became easier to bear. As winter settled over Hogwarts, Harry maintained his daily meditation practice. Early each morning, before his roommates woke, he would sit cross-legged on his bed, focusing his energies and sensing the magical currents flowing through the ancient castle. One December morning, he detected something unusual, a temporal disturbance, faint but distinct, coming from the castle's 7th floor. Curious, Harry finished his meditation and dressed quickly. The corridors were empty at this hour. Harry followed the energy signature up staircases and down hallways until he reached a particular stretch of wall opposite a tapestry of ballet-dancing trolls. The temporal distortion was strongest here, but there was no visible door. Harry closed his eyes, extending his mystical senses. Show me what you're hiding, he thought. When he opened his eyes, a door had appeared. Harry glanced around, then slipped inside. The room beyond was vast and cluttered with objects, thousands of items hidden over centuries by Hogwarts inhabitants. Harry followed the temporal signature through winding paths of hidden treasures until he reached a small cabinet. Inside, on a velvet cushion, lay a strange hourglass pendant on a gold chain. A time turner, Harry whispered, recognizing it from the Ancient One's teachings. Wizarding time magic was different from the mystic arts approach, but the signature was unmistakable. This device had been used extensively, recently, too. Harry carefully lifted the chain, feeling the magic hum against his skin. As he held it, visions flashed through his mind, Dumbledore using this very device, turning it again and again as he manipulated events around Harry's life. The pendant around Harry's neck grew warm in response. Harry understood then, the Ancient One had created a connection between her gift and this time turner. Both had been used to alter his timeline. Footsteps echoed somewhere in the vast room. Harry quickly pocketed the time turner and made his way back to the entrance. He slipped out just as Professor McGonagall rounded a distant corner, heading in the same direction. Back in his dormitory, Harry examined the time turner more closely. The magic within it resonated with his pendant, creating images when they touched, glimpses of the past alterations Dumbledore had made. In one vision, Dumbledore subtly influenced the Dursleys to treat Harry poorly but not fatally, enough mistreatment to make him humble and grateful for rescue, but not enough to break his spirit entirely. In another, the old wizard redirected a prophecy that had initially been vague enough to refer to either Harry or Neville. Most disturbing was the vision of Dumbledore visiting Godric's Hollow the night Harry's parents died. He arrived moments after Voldemort's defeat, before anyone else. Instead of immediately taking baby Harry to safety, he spent precious minutes examining the magical residue, even collecting some in vials, before Hagrid arrived. "He wanted to understand how I survived," Harry murmured. "He delayed my rescue for research." The time turner grew hot in his hand. One final vision showed Dumbledore in his office, distressed as he tried location spell after spell to find Harry after his disappearance from Privet Drive. "The boy cannot simply have vanished," Dumbledore muttered to himself. "No magic could hide him so completely, unless—" The vision Dumbledore looked up sharply, a name forming on his lips, the Ancient One. Harry nearly dropped the time turner. Dumbledore knew about Camartage. About the Ancient One. This changed everything. That night, Harry waited until his roommates were asleep before slipping from his bed. In the empty common room, he sat cross-legged before the fire and placed both the time turner and his pendant before him. Closing his eyes, he performed the communication ritual the Ancient One had taught him for emergencies. Golden energy formed a circle around him, invisible to non-mystical eyes, creating a brief connection across continents. "You found something troubling," came the Ancient One's voice in his mind. "Dumbledore knows about you," Harry replied silently. "And I've found the time turner he used for many of his manipulations. This is concerning but not unexpected. Albus Dumbledore has encountered mystical practitioners before, though never gained our knowledge. What else troubles you? The manipulations go deeper than we knew. He influenced the Dursleys specifically to mistreat me without breaking me. The actions of a chess master positioning his pieces." The Ancient One's mental voice was calm but held an edge of anger. "What will you do with this knowledge, Harry Potter?" Harry considered the question. "I won't confront him yet. There's more to learn first. Wise. Be cautious, but not afraid. Dumbledore plays a long game, but so do we." The connection faded as Harry opened his eyes. The fire had died down, casting the common room in shadow. "Harry?" Hermione's voice came from the staircase. "What are you doing up so late?" She stood in her dressing gown, watching him curiously. "Just thinking," Harry said, quickly pocketing both magical items. Hermione sat beside him. "About what?" Harry hesitated, then made a decision. "Hermione, what do you know about time magic?" Her eyes widened. "That's incredibly advanced and restricted magic." "Why? What if someone had been manipulating time to control someone else's life? Is there a way to stop it?" "Harry, that's—" She paused, studying his face. "This isn't theoretical, is it? This is about you." Harry nodded slowly. "I've discovered some things about my past. About why certain events happened the way they did." "Dumbledore," Hermione whispered. "That's what you meant when you said you understood manipulation." "I can't tell you everything yet," Harry said. "But I trust you, Hermione. And I might need your help." "With what?" Harry pulled out the time turner. With understanding exactly how this was used to reshape my destiny. Hermione gasped. That's a time turner. They're incredibly rare and regulated by the Ministry. And yet Dumbledore had this one hidden in a secret room. Harry turned it over in his hand. I need to know everything about how it works, its limitations, how to detect when it's been used. Hermione bit her lip. That's dangerous knowledge, Harry. More dangerous than not knowing when someone's rewriting your life. After a moment, she nodded. I'll help you research. But promise me you won't do anything reckless. Harry smiled. I promise to be calculated in my recklessness. That's not reassuring at all, she sighed, but there was a hint of a smile on her face. The Christmas holidays approached. Ron invited Harry to the Burrow, but Harry declined, claiming he needed to catch up on studies. In truth, he planned to use the emptier castle to investigate further. You're sure you won't come? Ron asked, packing his trunk. Mom makes amazing Christmas dinner. Next time, Harry promised. Give your family my thanks. Hermione was going home to her parents as well, but before leaving, she handed Harry a small stack of parchment. Everything I could find about time turners in the library, she whispered. Be careful with this information, Harry. After the majority of students departed, Harry had the dormitory to himself. He spent hours studying Hermione's notes, comparing wizarding time theory with what the Ancient One had taught him. The day before Christmas, Harry was exploring the 7th floor room again, the Room of Requirement, he'd learned it was called, when he felt a familiar presence. Turning, he found Dumbledore watching him from between two towering piles of discarded objects. Happy Christmas, Harry, the headmaster said pleasantly. I see you've discovered one of Hogwarts' most fascinating secrets. Harry kept his expression neutral. The castle seems full of them, sir. Indeed it does. Dumbledore approached slowly. May I ask what you're looking for in here? Understanding, Harry answered truthfully. Dumbledore nodded as if this made perfect sense. A worthy pursuit. I myself have spent many hours seeking the same. He gestured around. This room has existed as long as Hogwarts itself, appearing to those in need, becoming whatever is required. Like a sanctuary, Harry suggested. Or a hiding place. Precisely. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled, but Harry detected wariness behind them. I must admit, Harry, our last conversation left me with many questions. As it did me, headmaster. Perhaps we might trade answers, then. An exchange of understanding, as it were. Harry considered this. What would you like to know? Let us start simply. With whom have you been living these past 5 years? People who respect boundaries, Harry replied. Including my right to privacy. Dumbledore sighed. I see trust remains an issue between us. Trust is earned, Professor. Not commanded. Fair enough. Dumbledore conjured 2 comfortable armchairs with a wave of his wand. Please, sit. Allow me to earn some of that trust. Harry sat cautiously, keeping his mental shields up as the Ancient One had taught him. You mentioned a prophecy during our last meeting, Dumbledore began. And certain adjustments to timelines. I won't insult your intelligence by denying these things. That's refreshing. But I would ask you to consider my position, Harry. I am an old man who has witnessed 2 terrible wizarding wars. I have seen what Tom Riddle, what Voldemort, is capable of. So the ends justify the means? Harry asked quietly. Including manipulating a child's life? Dumbledore folded his hands. When that child is the only one who can ultimately defeat the darkest wizard of our time. I made difficult choices, Harry. Choices I must live with. While I had to live with the consequences, Harry pointed out. Yes. Dumbledore's admission seemed genuinely pained. For what it's worth, I never intended your life with the Dursleys to be as harsh as it apparently was. But you did intend for it to be unpleasant enough that Hogwarts would seem like salvation. Harry wasn't asking. Dumbledore didn't deny it. I needed you to choose our world, Harry. To be willing to fight for it. By making sure I had nothing else to fight for. Harry shook his head. That's not protection, Professor. That's control. Perhaps you're right. Dumbledore looked suddenly tired. But the prophecy, you helped shape it, Harry interrupted. It wasn't fixed until you made it so. Dumbledore's eyes widened slightly. You know far more than should be possible. Harry reached into his pocket and pulled out the time turner. I found your tool. The color drained from Dumbledore's face. Harry, that device is dangerous, in the wrong hands. Like the hands that used it to ensure I grew up unloved. The hands that nudged a prophecy toward me instead of Neville Longbottom. Harry's voice remained calm, but his eyes blazed. The hands that adjusted reality 41 times, all to create the perfect weapon against Voldemort. Not a weapon, Dumbledore said softly. A savior. Without my consent. You were an infant. Someone had to make those decisions. And now I'm not an infant anymore. Harry stood, pocketing the time turner. The manipulation stopped now, Professor. I'll face Voldemort when the time comes, not because you engineered my life to ensure it, but because it's the right thing to do. Dumbledore rose as well, studying Harry with new eyes. You've grown into quite a remarkable young man, Harry. Your parents would be proud. I hope so. Harry moved toward the exit. Happy Christmas, Headmaster. Harry, Dumbledore called after him. There are things you still don't know. Dangers you can't yet understand. Harry paused at the door. Then tell me. As an equal, not a pawn. When you're ready, I'm ready now. No, Dumbledore said sadly. You're not. But you're further along than I expected. Perhaps that's enough for now. Harry left, feeling Dumbledore's gaze on his back. The confrontation had revealed more than the headmaster intended. Harry now knew that Dumbledore still believed in the prophecy, still saw Harry as essential to Voldemort's defeat. What remained unclear was whether Dumbledore truly regretted his methods. The remainder of the school year brought new challenges. After Harry's confrontation with Dumbledore, he noticed subtle changes in how the headmaster and other staff treated him, more respect, less patronizing guidance. During a particularly dull history of magic lesson in spring, Harry felt a sudden sharp pain in his scar. It passed quickly, but left him unsettled. The connection to Voldemort that the Ancient One had identified years ago seemed to be growing stronger. You all right, mate? Ron whispered as Harry rubbed his forehead. Fine, Harry murmured. Just a headache. But it wasn't fine. Over the following weeks, Harry noticed Professor Quirrell watching him with an intensity that set off all his mystical alarms. The stuttering professor's magical signature had always felt strange to Harry's trained senses, but now it seemed almost doubled. Harry wrote to Wong about his suspicions, using their prearranged code. The reply was immediate and concerning: 2 souls, 1 vessel. Ancient violation. Extreme caution. Meanwhile, Hermione had been researching something else entirely. Nicholas Flamel, she announced one day in the library, slamming down an enormous book. I finally found him. He's the creator of the Philosopher's Stone. The what? Ron asked through a mouthful of chocolate frog. The Philosopher's Stone, it transforms metal to gold and produces the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal. Hermione looked triumphant. That's what's hidden in the 3rd-floor corridor. Harry recalled Dumbledore's warning at the start of term about the Forbidden Corridor. Why would Dumbledore bring something that valuable to a school full of children? To protect it, obviously, Hermione said. But from who? Voldemort, Harry said quietly. If he's still alive somehow, he'd want immortality. Ron winced at the name. You really think you know who is trying to steal it? Here. Under Dumbledore's nose. Harry thought of Quirrell's odd dual signature. I think he might already be here. That night, Harry used his pendant to contact the Ancient One again. Her response was immediate and alarming. If Voldemort seeks the stone, it confirms our suspicions. His soul was fractured the night he attacked you. What you sense in Quirrell is a fragment, parasitic but dangerous. Do not confront him alone. But events accelerated beyond Harry's control. Hagrid accidentally revealed how to get past the three-headed dog guarding the stone. Dumbledore was suddenly called to the Ministry. And Harry's scar burned with increasing intensity whenever Quirrell was near. We have to do something, Harry told Ron and Hermione after Dumbledore departed. Quirrell's going after the stone tonight. Shouldn't we tell another professor? Hermione suggested. McGonagall already didn't believe us, Ron reminded her. They all trust Quirrell. Then it's up to us, Harry said. That night, the three first-years slipped past Fluffy using music, navigated a devil's snare trap, caught a flying key, won a life-size chess match, where Ron sacrificed himself with surprising strategy, solved a logic puzzle involving potions, and finally, Harry faced Quirrell alone. Except Quirrell wasn't alone. You! Harry gasped as Quirrell unwrapped his turban, revealing a terrible face growing from the back of his head. Harry Potter, whispered Voldemort's face, red eyes gleaming with hatred. See what I've become. Shadow and vapor. Forced to share another's body. But with the elixir of life, I will rise again. Harry felt his scar burning, but kept his mental shield strong. The mystic arts training had prepared him for this moment more than any wizarding defense. The stone is in your pocket, Voldemort hissed suddenly. Give it to me. Harry realized with shock that the stone had somehow transferred from the mirror to his pocket. He backed away, hands moving in subtle patterns at his sides. I don't think so, Tom, he said, using Voldemort's birth name deliberately. Rage contorted the grotesque face. Seize him. Quirrell lunged forward. Harry dodged, nearly avoiding capture, but Quirrell caught his wrist. The moment their skin touched, Quirrell screamed in agony. His hand blistered as though burned. What is this magic? Voldemort shrieked. Harry realized what was happening. His mother's protection, the blood magic Dumbledore had mentioned, was reacting violently to Voldemort's presence. When Quirrell tried again, Harry made a split-second decision. He charged forward, pressing his hands to Quirrell's face. The pain in his scar was blinding, but he held on, feeling Quirrell's skin burn beneath his touch. As Quirrell collapsed, a dark mist rose from the body, Voldemort's soul fragment, screaming in fury. It swooped toward Harry, passing through him like ice water. The last thing Harry saw before losing consciousness was a flash of purple robes and a familiar face with half-moon spectacles. Harry woke in the hospital wing 3 days later. Beside his bed sat not only Dumbledore, but also a familiar figure in an immaculate suit. Wong, Harry croaked, struggling to sit up. Lie still, Wong instructed with his usual severity, though relief showed in his eyes. You've been unconscious for days. How? I contacted your guardian after your encounter, Dumbledore explained, watching their interaction carefully. Given the circumstances, it seemed appropriate. Harry looked between them. You two know each other. We've met, Wong said neutrally. Dumbledore smiled thinly. Master Wong and I have had occasion to discuss the boundaries between different magical traditions over the years. Though I must admit, I never expected him to be harboring the boy who lived. Not harboring, Wong corrected. Teaching. Protecting. Indeed. Dumbledore didn't look entirely convinced. And teaching him things beyond typical wizarding knowledge, it seems. Harry changed the subject. Voldemort, he was possessing Quirrell. Yes, Dumbledore confirmed. Though thanks to your mother's protection, he failed to obtain the stone. Nicholas and I have decided it must be destroyed. What about Voldemort? That thing that came out of Quirrell. Dumbledore's expression grew grave. Fled. Weakened, but not destroyed. He will find other ways to return. Because of the Horcruxes, Harry said quietly. Both adults stared at him in shock. How could you possibly know that term? Dumbledore whispered. Wong crossed his arms. The Ancient One has resources beyond your knowledge, Dumbledore. We've suspected Tom Riddle's methods for years. I see. Dumbledore leaned back, reassessing the situation. Then you understand the gravity of what we face. We do. Wong placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. Which is why Harry's training in both magical traditions must continue. I had hoped, Dumbledore began, then stopped himself. That is, I expected Harry would remain at Hogwarts during summer breaks now that he's returned to us. That won't be necessary, Harry said firmly. I'll return to Camartage for the summer. My education there is far from complete. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. But Harry, before term ends, I would appreciate a proper conversation, about the prophecy, about what you know, and about how we might work together rather than at cross purposes. I'd like that, Professor, Harry agreed. As equals. After Dumbledore departed, Wong relaxed slightly. You took an unnecessary risk confronting Voldemort alone. I wasn't entirely alone, Harry touched the pendant under his hospital gown. And I wasn't unprepared. The Ancient One is pleased with your progress, but concerned about the connection between you and Voldemort. It appears stronger than we anticipated. It is, Harry admitted. When he was near, my scar felt like it was splitting open. That will require special training this summer. Wong stood to leave. Rest now. I'll return at term's end to escort you home. Home. The word brought images of Camartage's peaceful courtyards, Wong's strict training sessions, and the Ancient One's enigmatic smile. Not the Dursleys, not Privet Drive, and not even Hogwarts with all its wonders. As the school year concluded, Harry found himself straddling two worlds, the wizarding community that hailed him as a hero for events he could barely remember, and the mystic realm that had given him the tools to forge his own destiny. On their last evening before departure, Hermione cornered Harry in the common room. You're not going to tell us where you're really going this summer, are you? She asked quietly. Harry smiled. Someday, Hermione. I promise. She nodded, then surprised him with a hug. Just be careful, Harry. And write to us. Every week, he promised. At the leaving feast, Dumbledore awarded last-minute points that won Gryffindor the House Cup. As red and gold banners unfurled from the ceiling, Harry caught the headmaster's eye across the hall. A silent understanding passed between them. The game had changed. The manipulations had been exposed. And when Harry returned for his second year, it would be with even greater knowledge of both magical worlds, and the temporal mysteries that connected them. Chapter 3, Timeline's converging. Summer at Camartage felt like stepping back into a dream after months away. Harry breathed in the mountain air, feeling tension he hadn't even noticed drain from his shoulders. The Ancient One waited in the courtyard, serene as always. Welcome home, Harry Potter, she said, bowing slightly. Harry returned the gesture with perfect form. It's good to be back. Your first year at Hogwarts has left its mark on you. She circled him slowly. Physically, magically, temporally. Harry nodded. Voldemort's presence affected the connection. And Dumbledore has realized his careful plans have gone awry. The Ancient One's lips curved into a small smile. Come. We have much to discuss. They walked to her private chambers, where Wong waited with tea and a stack of ancient books. The familiar routine settled Harry's mind. This was how serious discussions began at Camartage, with tea and knowledge. I've been studying the time turner you found, the Ancient One said, pouring steaming jasmine tea. Its temporal signature matches exactly with the distortions surrounding your life path. Harry sipped his tea. Dumbledore admitted to the manipulations, in a way. He justified them as necessary for defeating Voldemort. The greater good, Wong said disapprovingly. A dangerous philosophy. Tell me everything, the Ancient One instructed. Leave nothing out. Harry recounted his confrontation with Dumbledore, the encounter with Voldemort-possessed Quirrell, and the headmaster's apparent willingness to form a new understanding. He was rattled when I mentioned Horcruxes, Harry finished. I don't think he expected anyone else to know about them. Knowledge is power, the Ancient One mused. And Albus Dumbledore has long hoarded both. What exactly are Horcruxes? Harry asked. You've mentioned them before, but never explained fully. The Ancient One and Wong exchanged glances. The darkest of magic, Wong said finally. Objects containing pieces of a wizard's soul, created through murder. While they exist, the wizard cannot truly die. And Voldemort made multiple ones, Harry realized. That's how he survived when his killing curse rebounded. Yes. The Ancient One's expression grew grave. Your connection to him suggests something more troubling, however. Something we've suspected but hoped was not true. Harry felt cold despite the warm tea. What? The night your parents died, when the curse rebounded, Voldemort's soul was already unstable from previous Horcrux creations. We believe a fragment broke off and attached to the only living thing present. Harry's hand went to his scar. Me? I'm a Horcrux. Unintentionally, yes. That explains your connection, the pain in your scar, your ability to speak Parseltongue. Wait, Harry interrupted. How did you know I can speak to snakes? The Ancient One smiled. Just because you've been at Hogwarts doesn't mean we haven't been watching over you, Harry. Harry processed this revelation. So to defeat Voldemort completely, every Horcrux must be destroyed, Wong confirmed. Including, potentially. Me, Harry finished quietly. That is what Dumbledore believes, the Ancient One said. It's why he engineered your childhood to make you willing to sacrifice yourself when the time came. But there are other paths, if one has knowledge of both magical traditions. Harry straightened. Then let's find them. Harry's summer training intensified beyond anything he'd experienced before. Wong pushed his physical limits daily, while the Ancient One taught him advanced mental techniques to shield his mind from Voldemort's influence. Your connection flows both ways, she explained during one particularly grueling session. He can potentially access your thoughts, just as you sometimes glimpse his. Harry, sweat dripping from his forehead, maintained a complex shield visualization. Is that why my scar hurt around Quirrell? Precisely. Your Horcrux connection resonated with his presence. She circled him, adjusting his posture with light touches. This shield will help, but we must work toward a permanent solution. Removing the soul fragment without killing me? Yes. She gestured, and a three-dimensional magical diagram appeared between them. Eastern mysticism has studied soul magic for millennia before Hogwarts was built. There are techniques, dangerous ones, but possible. Between training sessions, Harry wrote to Ron and Hermione as promised, careful to reveal nothing about Camartage or his mystical education. He simply described being with family friends and studying alternative magical approaches. Hermione's letters back were filled with subtle probing questions that made him smile. She was too clever by half and growing suspicious. Ron's were simpler, mostly about Quidditch and complaints about his brothers. In mid-July, a formal-looking owl arrived carrying a letter not from his friends, but from Dumbledore himself. Dear Harry, I hope your summer studies are progressing well. After our conversations last term, I've been reflecting on certain choices made regarding your life path. I believe it's time we discussed the complete prophecy and my concerns about Tom Riddle's methods of survival. I've taken the liberty of researching certain mystical practices outside the wizarding tradition. The name Ancient One has appeared repeatedly in my investigations, a figure of considerable power and knowledge. If this is indeed your mentor, please convey my respect and my request for a meeting between magical equals. The coming conflict extends beyond wizarding concerns alone. Tom's methods have crossed boundaries no magic should breach. With sincere regards, Albus Dumbledore. Harry showed the letter to the Ancient One, who read it with an inscrutable expression. "He's more resourceful than I expected," she said finally. "Few wizards acknowledge magical traditions beyond their own. Will you meet with him?" She considered it. "Not yet. Dumbledore must first prove his willingness to treat you as more than a weapon in his arsenal. His letter suggests progress, but words are easy. What should I reply?" "Tell him you'll consider his request to discuss the prophecy when term begins. Say nothing of me or Camartage. Let him wonder a while longer." As July turned to August, Harry mastered increasingly complex mystical techniques. His favorite was the creation of gateway portals, golden sparking circles that could transport him anywhere he'd been before or could clearly visualize. "This skill will serve you well at Hogwarts," the Ancient One noted as Harry successfully created a portal from one end of the training ground to the other. "Though I suggest using it discreetly. I could visit Ron or Hermione during holidays," Harry realized. "You could," Wong agreed, "but remember that excessive use of mystic arts in wizard-heavy areas will draw attention. The magical signatures are distinctly different." On his 12th birthday, Harry received gifts by Owl from his Hogwarts friends, along with a special present from the Ancient One, a set of enchanted meditation beads that could be disguised as an ordinary bracelet. "These will help maintain your mental shields without constant effort," she explained. "Especially useful during classes when you cannot actively meditate." The final weeks of summer were spent preparing Harry for potential threats in the coming school year. "Voldemort will not abandon his efforts to return," the Ancient One warned. "And now he knows you're more than an ordinary boy. Be vigilant, trust your instincts, and remember your training." The night before his return to King's Cross Station, Harry found the Ancient One watching the stars from a high balcony. "Something's troubling you," he said, joining her. She smiled faintly. "Your perception continues to improve." After a pause, she continued, "I've been consulting the Time Stone about potential futures. The timelines surrounding you and Voldemort are chaotic. More so than they should be, even accounting for Dumbledore's manipulations." "What does that mean?" "It means something else is affecting the flow of time around your conflict. Something neither I nor Dumbledore have identified." She turned to face him fully. "Harry, I believe this school year will bring challenges beyond what we've prepared for." "I'll be careful," he promised. "More than careful. Be wise." She placed her hand on his shoulder. "And know that if true need arises, I will come to Hogwarts myself." Platform 9 3/4 buzzed with excitement as families bid farewell to students. Harry, accompanied by Wong, again in his immaculate Muggle suit, attracted curious glances from wizarding parents. "Remember your mental exercises morning and night," Wong reminded him, helping with his trunk. "I will. And I'll write if anything unusual happens." Wong almost smiled. At Hogwarts, unusual seems to be the norm. The Weasley family appeared through the barrier, a whirlwind of red hair and loud conversations. Ron spotted Harry and waved enthusiastically. "Harry! Over here!" Introductions were made, with Mrs. Weasley fussing over Harry's thin frame and Mr. Weasley taking perhaps too much interest in Wong's Muggle occupation. Wong handled the attention with stoic patience, giving vague answers about private security consulting. As the warning whistle blew, Wong surprised Harry with a brief but firm embrace. "Trust your training," he murmured. "Both magical traditions have value." On the train, Harry found a compartment with Ron and Hermione, who bombarded him with questions about his summer. He deflected most while sharing enough to satisfy their curiosity. "You seem different," Hermione observed shrewdly. "More centered, somehow." Harry shrugged. "Just grew up a bit, I guess." Their reunion was interrupted when the compartment door slid open to reveal Draco Malfoy flanked by Crabbe and Goyle. "Well, if it isn't Potter and his fan club," Malfoy drawled. Heard you disappeared again this summer. Hiding from your adoring public? Just avoiding tedious conversations, Harry replied calmly. Like this one. Malfoy's eyes narrowed. My father says Dumbledore's losing his grip, letting half-bloods and worse take over Hogwarts. Says it's only a matter of time before someone proper takes charge. Your father says a lot of things, Malfoy, Harry replied, unimpressed. Does he ever actually do anything? Malfoy's face flushed. You'll regret that, Potter. Things are changing at Hogwarts this year. After he stormed off, Hermione looked worried. What do you think he meant by that? Nothing good, Ron muttered. Harry frowned, remembering the Ancient One's warning about chaotic timelines. We'll find out soon enough. The welcoming feast began normally enough, with the Sorting Hat placing new students into their houses. Dumbledore gave Harry a thoughtful nod from the head table, but made no attempt to approach him. The newest addition to the staff was Gilderoy Lockhart, resplendent in forget-me-not blue robes, beaming at students as though bestowing a great gift with his mere presence. Harry's mystical senses prickled uncomfortably, something about Lockhart's magical signature seemed off, fragmented somehow. As they tucked into the feast, nearly headless Nick floated over to share the latest ghost gossip. And then the Bloody Baron said he wouldn't attend another Death Day party until Helena apologized, which of course she never. Harry nodded politely, but his attention was caught by an unusual shimmer near the entrance hall. To normal eyes, nothing would appear amiss, but Harry's mystical training allowed him to see subtle disturbances in magical currents. Something, or someone, had entered Hogwarts undetected by the standard protections. That night, Harry waited until his dorm mates were asleep before slipping into a meditation trance. He extended his senses throughout the castle, searching for the anomaly he'd glimpsed. There, in the lower levels, moving with purpose through the pipes and walls, a presence neither fully alive nor dead, carrying powerful dark magic. And beneath that, a second presence, smaller but blazing with life force being slowly drained away. Harry pulled back into himself, troubled. Something dangerous had entered Hogwarts, something the regular magical defenses hadn't stopped. He wrote a coded message to Wong that night, describing what he'd sensed. The reply came 3 days later, hidden in a care package of study snacks from his guardian, Ancient Serpent Magic. Chamber legend may be true. Extreme caution advised. Monitor only until we know more. The first few weeks of term passed in a blur of classes and homework. Lockhart proved to be an abysmal defense teacher, more interested in reenacting scenes from his books than teaching actual defensive magic. Can you believe this bloke? Ron muttered after a particularly useless lesson involving Lockhart's theatrical recounting of his battle with a banshee. There's something not right about him, Harry agreed quietly. His magical core feels patchy. Hermione overheard this. His magical core? What do you mean by that? Harry mentally kicked himself for the slip. Just a feeling. He doesn't seem as powerful as his stories suggest. Well, I think he's brilliant, Hermione defended, though with less conviction than her words implied. His books contain complex magical theory, that he probably copied from someone else, Ron interjected. Their debate was cut short by a blood-curdling scream from the corridor ahead. They rushed forward to find a crowd gathering around a wall where gleaming red letters spelled out an ominous message: the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. Beneath the message hung Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, stiff as a board. She's been petrified, Hermione whispered in horror. Harry felt the same dark energy he'd sensed earlier, lingering like a foul echo. As teachers arrived and students were ushered away, he caught Dumbledore studying him with unusual intensity. Later that night, unable to sleep, Harry slipped out of bed and under his invisibility cloak. He made his way to the message site, now scrubbed clean but still resonating with dark magic to his trained senses. You feel it too, then? Harry spun around. Dumbledore stood in the shadows, not looking the least bit surprised at an invisible student out after curfew. Professor, Harry acknowledged, removing the cloak. Yes, I can sense the residual energy. It's ancient and serpentine. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. Most wizards wouldn't detect that nuance. Your training continues to impress me. What exactly has been released from the chamber? I suspect a basilisk, a giant serpent that kills with its gaze. Mrs. Norris saw its reflection in the water on the floor, which is why she was petrified rather than killed. Harry absorbed this information. Someone's controlling it. I can sense two distinct magical signatures, the creature itself, and a darker presence guiding it. Indeed. Dumbledore studied him. Harry, I believe it's time for that conversation I mentioned in my letter. Would tomorrow evening be convenient? After dinner, perhaps? Harry nodded. I'll be there. Before returning to his dormitory, Harry asked one more question. Professor, has something changed recently in the castle's magical protections? I sense a thinning, for lack of a better word. Alarm flashed across Dumbledore's face. Not to my knowledge. Which is most concerning indeed. The next evening, Harry climbed the spiral staircase to Dumbledore's office, mentally preparing himself for a conversation long in coming. Ah, Harry. Right on time. Dumbledore gestured to a comfortable chair opposite his desk. A silver pensieve sat between them, its surface swirling with misty memories. I thought we might begin with complete honesty, Dumbledore said, surprising Harry. I have prepared several memories I believe you should see, memories of the prophecy, of Tom Riddle's past, and yes, of certain decisions I made regarding your upbringing. Harry settled into the chair. I appreciate that, Professor. Before we begin, however, I must ask, the mystical practices you've learned. They come from Camartage, do they not? From the Ancient One herself? Harry maintained a neutral expression. Why do you ask? Because it explains much about your remarkable development, and about how you vanished so completely from my tracking charms. Few magical enclaves can shield against wizarding detection so thoroughly. Seeing no point in denial, Harry nodded. Yes. The Ancient One found me after I accidentally created a dimensional rift escaping the Dursleys. Extraordinary, Dumbledore murmured. I've encountered practitioners of the mystic arts only twice in my long life. They guard their knowledge jealously from wizard kind. With good reason, Harry pointed out. Wizards tend to dismiss other magical traditions as inferior. A failing of our kind, Dumbledore acknowledged. One I've been guilty of myself. He gestured to the pensieve. Shall we begin with the prophecy? The full version, not the fragments you may have glimpsed through temporal viewing. Together they plunged into Dumbledore's memory, witnessing Trelawney's raspy voice delivering the fateful words in the Hog's Head pub. Harry listened intently, noting subtle magical currents around the prophecy that suggested manipulation, perhaps the first of Dumbledore's 41 timeline adjustments. When they emerged, Harry asked directly, You altered it to focus on me instead of Neville Longbottom, didn't you? Dumbledore sighed heavily. Not exactly. The prophecy was genuinely ambiguous, it could have referred to either of you. What I did was more subtle. I ensured knowledge of the prophecy reached Voldemort in a specific way, knowing he would choose to target you. Why? Why me instead of Neville? Your mother, Dumbledore said simply. Lily Evans was not only brilliant but had already demonstrated unusual sacrificial protection magic in saving your father during a previous Death Eater attack. I calculated, correctly, as it happened, that she would protect you with ancient magic that Tom would overlook. You gambled with my parents' lives, Harry said, voice tight with controlled anger. Yes. Dumbledore didn't flinch from the accusation. A decision that has haunted me. But had I not, Tom would likely have succeeded in killing both boys, and our world would have fallen to darkness. They viewed more memories, Tom Riddle's orphanage, his years at Hogwarts, Dumbledore's growing suspicions about Horcruxes. Finally, they watched as Dumbledore placed baby Harry on the Dursleys' doorstep, casting intricate protective charms. I knew they would not treat you with love, Dumbledore admitted as they returned to his office. But I believed the blood protection outweighed the emotional hardship you would endure. And my placement there made me easier to mold into your perfect weapon against Voldemort, Harry added. Not a weapon, Harry. Never that. Dumbledore looked genuinely pained. A savior, yes. The prophecy made that inevitable. But I wanted you to survive the confrontation, not merely defeat him. Is that why you used the time turner so extensively? To engineer the perfect circumstances? Dumbledore nodded slowly. 41 adjustments over a decade, each carefully calculated to maximize your chances of survival while ensuring Tom's defeat. And the Horcrux within me? Did you plan for that too? Dumbledore's expression confirmed Harry's suspicion. I didn't plan it, Tom created it accidentally, but once I confirmed its existence, I adapted my strategy. To what end? That I would willingly die when the time came. That you would be prepared to make the necessary sacrifice, yes. Though I never stopped searching for alternatives. Dumbledore leaned forward earnestly. Which brings me to why I sought contact with your mystical mentor. The Ancient One's knowledge of soul magic may offer solutions beyond wizarding capabilities. Harry absorbed this, sensing genuine hope in Dumbledore's admission. The Chamber of Secrets, Harry said, changing direction. It's connected to Voldemort, isn't it? Yes. Tom Riddle opened it during his time at Hogwarts. That he, or some aspect of him, has done so again suggests one of his Horcruxes may be active within Hogwarts. A diary, Harry said suddenly, recalling the smaller magical signature he'd sensed. Something is draining life force from a student to power a memory or soul fragment. Dumbledore looked genuinely startled. Your mystical senses are remarkably acute. Yes, I suspect Tom created a diary Horcrux that has found its way to a student. We need to find it before someone dies, Harry said, rising. Indeed. But Harry, there's more we must discuss about the Horcruxes. About your scar. I know what I am, Professor, Harry said quietly. The Ancient One explained it last summer. We're working on solutions that don't involve my death. Relief washed over Dumbledore's face. Then perhaps there is hope after all. As Harry turned to leave, Dumbledore called after him. Harry, I've made many mistakes. Use time itself to bend circumstances to my design. But know this, every manipulation, every adjustment, was made with one goal, your survival alongside Tom's defeat. I believe you, Harry said. But good intentions don't justify controlling someone's entire life. No, Dumbledore agreed solemnly. They don't. Over the next weeks, Harry divided his attention between classes, searching for the chamber's entrance, and maintaining his mystical training through dawn meditation sessions. He shared what he'd learned with Ron and Hermione, who helped research basilisks and Hogwarts plumbing systems. It's using the pipes to move around, Hermione concluded after cross-referencing several ancient maps of the castle. But where's the entrance? Another student was found petrified, Colin Creevey, camera raised as if to take a picture. Then Justin Finch-Fletchley and nearly headless Nick were discovered in similar states. Fear spread through the school. Many students suspected Harry himself might be the heir of Slytherin after an incident in Dueling Club revealed his Parseltongue abilities. This is getting out of hand, Harry told his friends as they huddled in the library. Someone's going to get killed if we don't find that diary soon. But how? Ron asked. It could be anyone. Harry closed his eyes, extending his mystical senses. The diary's dark energy had grown stronger, feeding off its victim. He concentrated, trying to isolate the signature. A girl, he murmured, eyes still closed. Young. Frightened. And. His eyes snapped open. Red hair. Ron went pale. Ginny? My sister? Harry nodded grimly. I think so. The energy's similar to yours, but corrupted by something else. We have to help her. Ron stood abruptly. We will, Harry promised. But carefully. If we just confront her, the diary might make her do something desperate. They formulated a plan. That evening, Harry created a small diversion in the common room while Hermione slipped into the first-year girls' dormitory. She returned looking shaken, a small black diary hidden in her robes. It was under her pillow, she whispered when they regrouped in an empty classroom. It felt wrong when I touched it. The diary lay innocuously on the desk before them. Harry could feel dark magic radiating from it in waves. That's definitely a Horcrux, he confirmed. We should take it to Dumbledore immediately. As Ron reached for it, Harry felt a surge of magic. Wait. Too late. The diary flipped open by itself, pages riffling rapidly. A blinding light erupted, and a semi-transparent figure began to form above the book, a handsome teenage boy in Hogwarts robes. Tom Riddle, Harry breathed. The spectral figure solidified, looking surprised to see them. Who are you? Where's the girl? Harry stepped forward, positioning himself between his friends and the manifestation. She's free of your influence now, Tom. Or should I call you Voldemort? Riddle's eyes narrowed, then fixed on Harry's scar. Harry Potter. How unexpected. Guys, run, Harry said quietly to his friends. Get Dumbledore. Now. But Harry, Hermione protested. Go. They backed toward the door, but Riddle waved his hand, and the exits sealed themselves. I think not, he said smoothly. I've been eager to meet you, Harry Potter. The boy who somehow defeated Lord Voldemort. My future self. Future failure, you mean, Harry corrected, subtly moving his hands into defensive positions. You lose, Tom. Every time. Riddle laughed coldly. Perhaps previously. But I've been feeding on that foolish girl's life force for months. I'm nearly corporeal now, and she's nearly dead. Where is she? Ron demanded. Where none will find her until it's too late. In Salazar's chamber, with my faithful servant waiting to finish what I started 50 years ago. Harry felt the castle wards shifting, weakening further as Riddle grew stronger. This manifestation was draining magic directly from Hogwarts itself. You won't succeed, Harry said confidently, continuing to work his hands through subtle mystical patterns. I've defeated you once already this year, remember? When you possessed Quirrell. Riddle's expression darkened. A temporary setback. This time, Harry completed the gesture. Golden energy sparked between his fingertips, forming a containment circle around the diary. Riddle's form flickered. What is this magic? He snarled. Something you wouldn't understand, Harry replied, maintaining the spell with one hand while reaching for his wand with the other. Hermione, the basilisk fawn we prepared, now. Hermione pulled a wrapped object from her bag, a basilisk fawn they'd secretly borrowed from Snape's private stores, suspecting they might need it against a Horcrux. No. Riddle shrieked, suddenly desperate. He sent a blast of magic toward Hermione, but Harry deflected it with a shield charm from his wand, still maintaining the mystic containment with his other hand. Hermione tossed the fawn to Harry, who caught it deftly. This ends now, Tom. With a decisive stab, Harry plunged the fawn into the diary. Ink spurted like blood as Riddle's form contorted in agony, screaming until it burst apart into nothingness. For a moment, they stood in stunned silence. Blimey, Ron finally whispered. Was that really you-know-who? A piece of him, Harry confirmed, releasing his mystical energy. A Horcrux. Harry, Hermione said slowly, what was that golden light you created? That wasn't any spell we've learned. Before Harry could answer, the classroom door burst open. Dumbledore strode in, followed by Professor McGonagall and, to Harry's shock, the Ancient One herself, dressed in simple Muggle clothing that somehow still marked her as distinctly otherworldly. We felt the Horcrux's destruction, Dumbledore explained, taking in the scene. But I see you've handled it admirably. The Ancient One moved directly to Harry. You combine traditions effectively. Well done. McGonagall looked between them in confusion. Albus, who is this woman? And how did she enter Hogwarts without triggering the alarms? A question for another time, Minerva, Dumbledore said smoothly. For now, we have a more pressing concern. Miss Weasley, the chamber, Harry said urgently. Riddle said she's still there, dying. Then we must find it immediately, Dumbledore declared. I believe I can help with that, the Ancient One said calmly. She turned to Harry. Focus your senses on the connection. Where was the girl when the diary was using her? Harry closed his eyes, concentrating on the lingering magical signature. Second floor, near Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. The site of the first death 50 years ago, Dumbledore murmured. Of course. They moved swiftly through the castle, Harry, Dumbledore, and the Ancient One taking the lead while McGonagall escorted Ron and Hermione back to Gryffindor Tower despite their vehement protests. In Myrtle's bathroom, Harry's Parseltongue abilities opened the entrance to a vast pipe leading deep beneath the castle. The Ancient One created a floating platform of mystical energy to carry them down safely. Impressive, Dumbledore commented, eyes twinkling. Efficient, the Ancient One replied simply. They traversed a tunnel littered with animal bones until they reached an ornate door covered in serpents. Again, Harry's Parseltongue opened the way. The Chamber of Secrets stretched before them, a vast cathedral-like space with towering pillars and a massive statue of Salazar Slytherin at the far end. In the center lay Ginny Weasley, pale as death. Careful, Harry warned. The basilisk is still here, the Ancient One confirmed, her eyes scanning dimensions beyond normal sight. Waiting. They approached Ginny cautiously. Harry checked her pulse, faint, but present. She's alive, but barely. The diary's destruction should have broken the connection, but she's not recovering. Tom found a way to anchor part of his consciousness directly to her, Dumbledore realized. Even with the Horcrux destroyed, the parasitic connection remains. A soul leech, the Ancient One said grimly. Wizarding magic cannot undo this, but perhaps. She knelt beside Ginny, hands weaving intricate patterns in the air above the girl's chest. Golden mandalas formed and dissolved as she worked. A hissing sound echoed through the chamber. The basilisk had sensed their presence. Harry, Albus, the Ancient One said without looking up, I need time to complete this extraction. We'll handle the basilisk, Dumbledore said, raising his wand. Remember your training, the Ancient One reminded Harry. Eastern and Western traditions together. Harry nodded, drawing his wand but also centering his mystical energies. He and Dumbledore positioned themselves between the Ancient One and the source of the hissing. The basilisk erupted from Slytherin's mouth, 60 feet of gleaming scales and deadly fangs. Harry and Dumbledore immediately averted their eyes from its lethal gaze. Conjunctivitis. Dumbledore cast, sending a precise spell toward the serpent's eyes. The basilisk shrieked in pain as its killing gaze was neutralized. Harry followed up with a blasting curse that bounced harmlessly off its magically resistant scales. Physical attacks won't work, Harry called to Dumbledore. And it can still smell us. Indeed, the blinded basilisk was now tracking them by scent, its massive head swinging back and forth before lunging toward Harry. He dodged, creating a brief portal that deposited him 20 feet away. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose at the display of mystic arts, but he didn't comment, too busy transforming the stone floor into quicksand to slow the serpent's movement. Behind them, the Ancient One continued her delicate work, extracting the parasitic soul fragment from Ginny's core. Golden light pulsed around her hands, drawing a dark mist from the girl's chest. The basilisk broke free from Dumbledore's quicksand trap, lunging again. This time, Harry was ready. He combined traditions, a shield charm from his wand while simultaneously creating a mystical weapon construct with his free hand. A glowing golden sword materialized, its blade crackling with energy as Harry swung it at the lunging serpent. The mystical edge sliced through scales that physical weapons couldn't penetrate, drawing an agonized howl from the basilisk. "Well done!" Dumbledore called, following up with a complex spell that wrapped magical chains around the wounded creature. The basilisk thrashed violently, breaking the chains and sending debris flying. A massive stone pillar toppled toward the Ancient One and Ginny. Harry reacted instantly, creating a portal that redirected the falling pillar into the basilisk's path instead. Dumbledore added his own magic, transfiguring the stone into spears as it fell. The basilisk, weakened and impaled, gave one final lunge toward Harry. He met it head-on, mystical sword raised. The blade pierced the roof of the serpent's mouth just as one venomous fang sank into Harry's arm. White-hot pain spread immediately from the wound. Harry stumbled back as the basilisk collapsed, dead at last. "Harry!" Dumbledore rushed to him, face grave as he examined the fang still embedded in Harry's arm. "Basilisk venom has no cure," Harry gasped, feeling the poison spreading rapidly. "Conventional cures, no," the Ancient One said, appearing beside them. Her hands moved in precise patterns over his wound. "But we are beyond conventional methods today." Golden energy enveloped Harry's arm, containing the venom while Dumbledore carefully extracted the fang. Together, the two powerful practitioners worked, Dumbledore drawing out the physical poison with his wand while the Ancient One purified Harry's life force with mystical energy. The pain gradually subsided. Harry looked over to where Ginny lay, now stirring weakly. "She'll be all right," the Ancient One assured him. "The soul fragment has been neutralized." Harry nodded, relieved. Then a thought struck him. "My blood, the Horcrux in my scar, is intact," Dumbledore confirmed, looking troubled. "The basilisk venom wasn't in your system long enough to affect it. But it gives us valuable information," the Ancient One noted. "We now know such venom can destroy Horcruxes without destroying their containers, with the right application." As they helped Ginny to her feet, Dumbledore regarded the Ancient One with newfound respect. "I believe we have much to discuss about young Harry's future. And about certain temporal anomalies that seem to surround him." "Indeed," she agreed. 41 of them, I believe." In the hospital wing, Harry and Ginny recovered under Madame Pomfrey's watchful eye. Ron and Hermione had been allowed brief visits, during which Harry explained, with considerable editing, how they'd rescued Ginny and destroyed the basilisk. "But what was that golden light, Harry?" Hermione persisted. "That wasn't any wizarding spell I've ever read about." "It's complicated," Harry hedged. "I'll explain everything someday, I promise." Meanwhile, in Dumbledore's office, a historic meeting was taking place. The Ancient One and Dumbledore sat across from each other, two of the most powerful magical practitioners of their respective traditions, discussing Harry Potter's extraordinary situation. 41 distinct timeline manipulations, the Ancient One said, turning the time turner over in her fingers. All centered on one boy. Even I, with the time stone at my disposal, would consider such interference excessive. "I believed it necessary," Dumbledore said without apology. "The prophecy was ambiguous until you nudged it toward Harry," she finished. "Yes, I've seen the original timeline branches. Neville Longbottom might have been the chosen one in many of them." Dumbledore sighed heavily. "I calculated Harry's chances of survival as marginally higher, given Lily Potter's exceptional talent for protective magic. A cold calculus. War demands difficult choices." The Ancient One studied him. "And the Horcrux in his scar? Did that factor into your calculations?" "Not initially. Once I confirmed its existence, I adjusted my strategy accordingly. To prepare him for self-sacrifice," she said bluntly. Dumbledore didn't flinch. "Yes. Though I never stopped searching for alternatives. Which is why you're willing to speak with me now." The Ancient One set the time turner aside. "Eastern mysticism approaches soul magic differently than Western wizardry. There may be a way to extract the soul fragment without harming Harry. You believe this is possible? Hope flickered in Dumbledore's eyes. With proper preparation, yes. But it will require Harry to master advanced techniques from both our traditions. She fixed Dumbledore with a penetrating stare. And it will require you to relinquish control of his destiny. I've already lost that control, Dumbledore admitted ruefully. From the moment he created that dimensional rift and found his way to Camartage. The moment you left him with abusive guardians, she corrected gently but firmly. Dumbledore accepted the rebuke with a nod. You're right, of course. I prioritized the blood protection over his happiness, believing one necessary and the other secondary to the greater purpose. And now? Now I see a young man of extraordinary talent and courage, trained in traditions I barely comprehend, making better choices than I did at his age. Dumbledore smiled sadly. Perhaps it's time I trusted those choices. A wise conclusion, the Ancient One approved. Now, shall we discuss how our respective magical traditions might work together to address Tom Riddle's remaining Horcruxes? I believe we've identified 6 in total. 7, counting Harry. 6 deliberate creations, plus the accidental fragment in Harry, she clarified. The diary has been destroyed. That leaves the ring, the locket, the cup, the diadem, and something of Ravenclaw's or Gryffindor's. Dumbledore stared. How could you possibly know? The time stone reveals many things to those who know how to look. She smiled enigmatically. Including the locations of several items you've been seeking. For the first time in decades, Albus Dumbledore found himself genuinely shocked. You know where they are? Some. Others remain hidden even from mystical sight. But together, perhaps we can find them all. The next morning, Harry was released from the hospital wing to find the school buzzing with rumors about the Chamber of Secrets, the Basilisk, and his role in saving Ginny Weasley. More surprising was the news that a special consultant had arrived to help develop intertradition magical cooperation, the Ancient One herself, though few knew her true identity or significance. In a private meeting with Harry, Dumbledore and the Ancient One explained their unprecedented alliance. We've agreed to combine our knowledge to address the Horcrux situation, Dumbledore explained. Including the one in your scar. The Basilisk Venom incident provided valuable insights, the Ancient One added. With proper preparation of both body and spirit, we believe the soul fragment can be extracted without harming you. Harry felt a weight lift from his shoulders. So I don't have to die to defeat Voldemort? No, Harry, Dumbledore said firmly. That particular timeline has been averted. There's more, the Ancient One continued. Our collaborative work has revealed something unexpected about the 41 timeline manipulations surrounding you. What's that? Not all of them were Dumbledore's doing, she said, surprising both Harry and the headmaster himself. In fact, only 26 can be attributed to him. But who? Harry began. Voldemort himself, Dumbledore realized suddenly. He's been making his own temporal adjustments. The Ancient One nodded. Through various dark rituals and his connection to Harry, he's been trying to counter your manipulations, Albus. The timeline around Harry has essentially become a battlefield between your competing visions. And neither of you thought to ask what I wanted, Harry pointed out, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. A fair criticism, the Ancient One acknowledged. Which is why what happens next must be entirely your choice, Harry. What do you mean? Dumbledore produced a small vial of swirling silver memory. This contains the complete prophecy, not just the words themselves, but the magical resonance around them. The nexus point of all these manipulations. If you choose, the Ancient One explained, we can use both our traditions to neutralize the prophecy entirely, to remove its binding power over your destiny. Harry stared at them in shock. That's possible. Difficult and dangerous, Dumbledore cautioned, but yes, possible. The combined approach of wizarding and mystical techniques creates possibilities neither tradition could achieve alone. The choice is yours, Harry, the Ancient One said. Continue on the path laid before you, with our support but bound by prophecy, or step into uncharted territory, free from predestination but facing greater uncertainty. Harry didn't hesitate. I want to be free. No more manipulations, no more prophecy. The two magical leaders exchanged glances. Very well, Dumbledore said solemnly. We'll prepare the ritual for the summer solstice, when magical barriers are naturally thinner. In the meantime, the Ancient One added, we've devised a training regimen combining both traditions to prepare you. Professor Dumbledore will oversee your wizarding education here, while I shall remain nearby to continue your mystical training. You're staying? Harry asked, surprised. For now. The situation warrants it. She smiled slightly. Wong sends his regards, by the way. He's managing Camartage in my absence. As the meeting concluded, Dumbledore asked Harry to remain behind briefly. Harry, I owe you an apology, many apologies, in fact, for the liberties I took with your life. The manipulations, the Dursleys, the secrecy, all of it. You did what you thought was necessary, Harry said, not quite forgiving but understanding. Yes, but necessity is cold comfort to a child locked in a cupboard. Dumbledore's eyes held genuine regret. I prioritized the greater good over your individual welfare, and in doing so, failed you as a guardian. Harry nodded, appreciating the honesty. And now? Now I hope to do better. To be an ally rather than a chess master. Dumbledore smiled sadly. It seems an old dog can learn new tricks, with sufficient motivation. The remaining weeks of term passed in a whirlwind of activity. Publicly, the Ancient One was introduced as Madam Ancient, a specialist in obscure magical techniques consulting on Hogwarts security following the chamber incident. Privately, she began training Harry, Dumbledore, and, after Harry's insistence, Hermione in the combined approach they would need for the solstice ritual. You're really from another magical tradition entirely? Hermione asked the Ancient One after their first session, eyes wide with academic excitement. The mystical arts predate wand-based wizardry by millennia, the Ancient One confirmed. We draw energy from different dimensional sources. That's why Harry could make those golden shields and weapons. Hermione turned to her friend accusingly. You've been studying this all along, haven't you? Harry nodded. Since I was 6. The Ancient One found me after I accidentally created a portal trying to escape Uncle Vernon. And you never told us? Ron looked hurt. I couldn't, Harry explained. The mystical arts are kept separate from wizarding magic for good reasons. Different energies, different approaches, different risks. But now the traditions are merging, the Ancient One noted. At least for this specific purpose. By mid-June, preparations for the solstice ritual were complete. They would perform it in the heart of the Forbidden Forest, where natural magical energies converged. The goal was threefold: neutralize the prophecy binding Harry and Voldemort, weaken the Horcrux in Harry's scar for eventual extraction, and reverse the temporal manipulations affecting Harry's life path. There's one complication, Dumbledore warned as they finalized plans. If Voldemort has indeed been making his own timeline adjustments, he may sense our interference and attempt to stop us. I've considered this, the Ancient One replied. I've arranged additional protection. The night before the solstice, Harry sat with Ron and Hermione by the lake, explaining as much as he could about what would happen. So after tomorrow, you'll be free of the prophecy? Hermione asked. That's the plan, Harry confirmed. No more destiny, just choices. Brilliant, Ron grinned. Wish I could watch, but Dumbledore says it's too dangerous for anyone not directly involved. Harry nodded. The energies we're working with are volatile. Mixing traditional magic with mystical forces isn't exactly standard practice. Hermione bit her lip. Are you scared? Terrified, Harry admitted. But also, hopeful. For the first time, I feel like I might have a future that's truly mine. As sunset approached on the solstice, Harry, Dumbledore, and the Ancient One made their way to the ritual site, a natural clearing where ancient standing stones had been arranged in a pattern corresponding to both magical and mystical energy flows. The stars are aligning, Dumbledore noted, checking a complex astronomical instrument. We should begin. The Ancient One nodded, removing the Eye of Agamotto from around her neck, the first time Harry had seen the actual time stone since leaving Camartage. This will help stabilize the temporal fluctuations, she explained. When the timeline manipulations begin to unravel, reality itself may protest. They took positions at 3 points of a triangle within the stone circle. Dumbledore placed the pensieve containing the prophecy memory at the center. Remember, the Ancient One cautioned, once we begin, we must complete the ritual regardless of interruptions. The consequences of stopping midway could be catastrophic. Harry nodded, his hands steady as he drew the first mystical symbols in the air. Golden energy flowed from his fingertips, meeting Dumbledore's wand work and the Ancient One's more complex manipulations at the center. The prophecy memory rose from the pensieve, expanding into a glowing sphere of silver mist. Within it, Trelawney's raspy voice repeated the fateful words, "The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies." As the prophecy played, Harry felt something shift within his scar. Pain flared briefly, then subsided as the Ancient One's protective energy surrounded him. The ritual progressed, layers of magic and mystical force interweaving. The time stone glowed vibrantly as temporal energies flowed through the clearing, revealing ghostly images of past manipulations being undone. Harry saw flashes of alternative paths, himself growing up with different guardians, attending different schools, making different choices. The weight of predestination began lifting from his shoulders. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and a cold wind swept through the clearing. "He knows," Dumbledore said grimly. "Voldemort senses what we're doing." The Ancient One remained focused on the ritual. "Continue. We're too far along to stop." A high, cold laugh echoed through the forest. From the tree stepped a tall, pale figure in dark robes, not fully corporeal, but more substantial than a ghost. "How touching," Voldemort's spectral form hissed. "My old professor, the mystical interloper, and the boy who refuses to die, all working together to undo destiny." "It's not real," the Ancient One warned. "Just a projection through the Horcrux connection." "Real enough to stop you," Voldemort countered, raising a ghostly hand. Dark energy lashed toward the ritual circle. Harry instinctively raised a mystical shield, deflecting the attack while maintaining his part in the ritual. "I've spent decades weaving time to my advantage," Voldemort snarled. "Creating fail-safes, contingencies, manipulating events just as Dumbledore did. You think I'll let you unravel all that work in a single night?" More attacks came, some aimed at the ritual energies, others targeting them directly. Dumbledore defended with impressive wand work while continuing his incantations. The Ancient One maintained the temporal stability through the time stone, her face serene despite the chaos. "Harry Potter," Voldemort addressed him directly, "we are bound by prophecy and blood. Breaking that connection will destroy you." "No," Harry replied confidently, "it will free me." The prophecy orb in the center began to crack as the ritual reached its climax. Light poured from the fissures, and Harry felt the Horcrux in his scar writhing in protest. Voldemort's projection howled in fury, summoning a massive surge of dark magic. "If I cannot stop you, I will take you with me." The attack struck Harry directly, a concentrated blast of hatred and rage. He staggered but remained standing, maintaining his position in the ritual. "Now, Harry." The Ancient One called. The final convergence. Harry raised both hands, one holding his wand, the other weaving mystical energy. He spoke words the Ancient One had taught him, ancient sounds that resonated with both magical traditions simultaneously. The prophecy orb shattered. A shockwave of pure magical force exploded outward, washing over them all. Harry felt something tear loose from his scar, not the entire Horcrux, but its hold on his destiny. Voldemort's projection distorted, screaming in impotent rage as it dissipated. When the light faded, Harry stood at the center of the circle alone. Dumbledore and the Ancient One had been thrown clear by the blast but were picking themselves up, looking shaken but triumphant. "It worked," Dumbledore said in wonder, scanning Harry with his wand. "The prophecy binding is gone." The Ancient One approached, studying Harry with mystical sight. "The Horcrux remains, but weakened and disconnected from the greater soul network. We can extract it safely now." Harry touched his scar, feeling the difference immediately. The constant background pressure he'd never even realized was there had vanished. He felt lighter, clearer. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," the Ancient One said with a rare smile, "you write your own destiny, Harry Potter." In the days that followed, the effects of the ritual became apparent. Harry's nightmares about Voldemort ceased entirely. His magical abilities seemed more balanced, easier to control. And most significantly, his scar, while still visible, no longer pulsed with dark energy. On the last day of term, Harry met with Dumbledore and the Ancient one final time before departure. "The Horcrux extraction ritual is prepared," the Ancient One informed him. "We'll perform it at Camartage next month, when you've fully recovered from the solstice working." "And after that?" Harry asked. "After that, you continue your education in both traditions," Dumbledore said. "Hogwarts during the school year, Camartage during breaks, if that's what you choose." "It is," Harry confirmed without hesitation. "Voldemort will return," Dumbledore warned. "The prophecy no longer binds you to confront him, but he will still seek you out." "I know." Harry nodded solemnly. "But when he does, I'll face him by choice, not destiny. And I'll have both magical traditions to draw from." The Ancient One studied him proudly. "You've grown remarkably, Harry. Few could have navigated these challenges with such wisdom." "I had good teachers," Harry replied, glancing between them. "Even if one of them did manipulate my timeline 41 times. Dumbledore had the grace to look abashed. 26 times, apparently. Though that hardly improves matters." "What about the other 15 manipulations?" Harry asked. "Voldemort's adjustments. We've neutralized most," the Ancient One explained. "Though some were too deeply woven into your past to undo without causing greater damage. So I'm still living with some of his tampering." "As are we all," Dumbledore said philosophically. "Time is not so easily corralled, even by those who think themselves its master." The meeting concluded with practical arrangements for Harry's summer. He would spend 2 weeks at Camartage for the Horcrux extraction, then divide his time between there and the Weasleys, with occasional visits to Hogwarts for specialized training with Dumbledore. "No more Dursleys," Harry confirmed. "No more Dursleys," Dumbledore promised. "That particular mistake ends now." As Harry prepared to board the Hogwarts Express the next morning, he found Hermione waiting for him on the platform. "I've been thinking," she said without preamble, "about what you told us about the mystical arts. And I want to learn." Her eyes shone with determination. "Not just read about it, really learn it. Do you think your teacher would consider taking another student?" Harry grinned. "I think the Ancient One might make an exception for the brightest witch of our age." Ron joined them, dragging his trunk. "What are you two plotting now?" "The future," Harry replied simply. "One we get to choose ourselves." As the train pulled away from Hogsmeade Station, Harry watched the castle recede into the distance. For the first time since learning about the prophecy, he felt truly unburdened. The path ahead was uncertain, full of challenges and dangers. Voldemort would return, Horcruxes remained to be destroyed, and dark forces still moved in the shadows. But now, Harry faced them not as the boy who lived, bound by prophecy and manipulated by greater powers, but as Harry Potter, student of 2 magical traditions, master of his own destiny. The Ancient One had taught him that time was fluid, full of infinite possibilities. Dumbledore had shown him that choices, not prophecies, defined a person's worth. And now, with the timelines no longer constraining him, Harry was ready to forge his own future, one spell, one mystic gesture, one freely made choice at a time. In his pocket, the pendant the Ancient One had given him years ago warmed comfortingly against his skin. No longer a monitoring device or a connection to temporal visions, it now simply reminded him of where he'd been and how far he'd come. From the abused boy in a cupboard to the confident young wizard-sorcerer he was becoming, a journey made possible not by Dumbledore's 41 manipulations, but by his own courage, his friend's loyalty, and the unexpected second chance that came when a dimensional rift tore open beneath his desperate hands, revealing a path between worlds. The train rounded a bend, and Hogwarts vanished from view. Harry smiled, turning back to his friends and the conversation about their summer plans. The past, manipulated as it had been, was finally behind him. The future, at last, was his to write. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.